Hey everyone, it's Ribozoid. Thanks for tuning in to week 2 updates of Project No Excuses. Last week I set a schedule and this week I played it out to make sure that I could abide by it. And it works really well, but in addition to the media day on Monday, I added a maintenance day on Tuesday where I clean up the drones, blow out the motor windings, oil the bearings, check wires, do all that, keep things running and keep me in the air so I don't have to spend more time fixing and building. I'm going to just dedicate a day or at least a half a day to maintenance, and then hopefully Tuesday evening start my week of practice from there. So this week there was rain and we didn't have a race, so the footage is all going to be practice footage. So I apologize for that, but Apache Pass is this weekend. It's a 4-day RC festival that I'll be attending, so next week should have tons of pretty cool footage, not only of me and quads but of other people and plenty of airplanes and helicopters, so that should be interesting. So stay tuned to next week. Tuesday was a very frustrating day, and it's what convinced me to add a maintenance day in. I had an issue last week and I thought it was the wire powering my ESC, and I replaced that and I luckily was able to run a race, but then Monday or Tuesday when I started trying to fly again, I noticed that one ESC wouldn't arm. So I went back and it was the same one, and I tried to test the wire seemed fine, and I finally realized that it was a power distribution board, and I either burnt it up because I was pulling too much current, or I burnt it up when I was soldering it and I was using too hot of a soldering temperature. Nevertheless, the pad separated from the board and I wasn't getting good power. So I since replaced that, but the reason why it was so frustrating is because on Tuesday I'm trying to rush through this build so I can get back out and fly again because it's been a couple days since I flew. And then once it's all ready, I go out to the field, set the whole course up, get everything ready to roll, and motor won't arm. And I'm like, what the freak? So I go back, plug in my soldering iron, try to do all this stuff. Nothing's working, can't get it to work, can't figure it out. And then eventually I realize it's a power distribution board and I have to build from the ground up. So I decide to go home. So I was there for like 2.5 hours after setting up and all that nonsense, and had to go back home, and that was very frustrating. And I haven't had one of those days in a long time. I mean, I've built like 30 or 40 drones in the past 3 years, and that used to happen a lot. I used to like build something, and there's so many moving parts that one little thing could go wrong, and I would get to the field, go to fly, and like it wouldn't work, wouldn't arm, something was wrong. And that used to happen a lot, especially when I first started building, and it hasn't happened in a while. So it was a good reminder, and I think it happened kind of so that I can talk about it to get people to realize that this stuff is pretty complex and there's a lot of moving components, not necessarily physically moving, but there's a lot of components, and things can go wrong in every which way, and troubleshooting it can be irritating at times, but in the end it's totally worth it. And getting up in the air, it makes everything worth it. So although it was super frustrating, I pushed through and eventually got back up in the air. The issues I had on Tuesday really brought to light how I needed to get the Nitto Breakneck up and running. I didn't want to spend too much time building, and I wanted to fly as much as possible, but realizing how close I came to not having a race ready machine the day of a race was an eye-opening experience, and I just definitely want to have a backup always. I have plenty of beater drones, or as I like to call them, Frankensteins, but I need a race ready backup. After mating the Breakneck, I'm pretty sure this is going to be my primary racer. It has some ridiculous power running 5-inch props versus the 4-inch props. In addition to that, I'm running Race Flight at double the cycle speed and S-Bus in comparison to PPM on the 180. As you can see, I'm getting much better. I can recover much better I had a tendency of disarming my quad as soon as I would start to crash, and I did this because I just wanted to save the machine typically, or I was trying to protect the ESC or motor or whatnot, protect people. But now that I'm racing, I need to learn how to pull out of a crash. So I'm getting much better to that, and I actually switched over to an arm switch versus the stick commands. So that helps a lot. I find that starting off the day by burning a battery, just running straight and back, running 100-yard sprints, really helps get me into the zone versus starting off and trying to hit the gates initially. So before I start hitting the gates, I tend to just run a couple 100-yard dashes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until the battery's dead, and then just make sure that the quad is functioning perfectly and everything is working. Do some flips, make sure that everything's just tuned in and working correctly. And then after that battery is done or halfway through, then I actually tend to set up the field so that if there is an issue, I haven't set up the course already and then have to take everything down, or debug in the field if it's a bigger issue like a power distribution board like I had earlier in the week. So there were way more updates this week, but I'm trying to keep the video short. So I'm thinking I'm going to start posting my flight logs to the site so that you can see day by day the things that I'm getting into and the issues that I'm having, and at least if I post them there, and if there's a question, if somebody's having the same type of issue or whatnot, I can respond back to it with the solution, because I may not always have the time to go back and enter a solution to the issues that I might be having that are in the flight log. But at least if I post them there, they're somewhere else, and you can kind of see a day-by-day in-depth overview of what I'm doing. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you tune in next week, and if you like what you see, please like, subscribe, and check out Ribozoid.com.